IVM.
There's a quick survey to fill out on ivmpodcast.com/survey. It lets us know a little bit more about who's listening to us. And you know what? We're going to do a few prizes. So, we'll do a random drawing of maybe 10 people and we'll send you all some swag. Remember, that's ivmpodcast.com/survey where you can fill out the survey.
The home and furnishing sector has for the longest time been one of those silent and often ignored sectors because there's a lot more action happening in other spaces. But that's fast changed in recent years. A, because of the advent of D2C marketplaces into the space and how the offline and online mixture has worked, especially in this category. And also because all of us have looked at home and furnishing in such a different light now in this, I can't even call it post-pandemic, this pandemic world where we aren't just working from home, we're working from our hometowns, we're moving back into cities, we're moving out of our cities, our furniture is moving with us, or rather, furniture is coming towards us. To dig into this a little bit more, I have Naveen Murali on the show today. He's the Vice President and Head of Marketing at PepperFry, and I'm going to ask him a ton of questions so we can all understand a lot more about this space. I'm Varun Duggirala. This Advertising is Dead. Right back with Naveen Murali.
Namaste, this is Cyrus Brocha. I am part of the government cancel culture program to remove rubbish off all the different streams available. So what we have is all the collected rubbish we put together on our show. It's called Cyrus Says. It's on IVM podcast. You have to watch it and listen to it. It's on our app. It's on our website. It's on the YouTube channel. It's on Facebook. There are many different ways. Don't bother me and ask me how. You have to find out. We talk to different personalities. Many of them are known. Some are just people we meet downstairs and invite them up for chai. But the point is, it's fun and it's very therapeutic. So please join in and listen to Cyrus Says.
Welcome back to Advertising is Dead. We're talking to Naveen. Naveen, welcome to the show. You've come in to talk about a sector which I have become very excited about in recent times. I think it's a newfound love I found in the last couple of years. So super excited to have you on the show.
Glad to be here, Varun. Equally excited. I've gone through a lot of your podcasts myself. So pretty interested with what we'll discuss today.
Let me first start off by getting a broad understanding of the landscape, right? If you look at this category, which is everything between furniture and, obviously there's home decor and everything else. It wasn't as exciting a sector for most people to look at and even though it's happening, everyone know it's needed. It was always there, a part of everybody's thought process, but it wasn't at its level of excitement as we find it to be today. What has really changed in the last few years that's really kind of pushed this to the forefront, just in terms of overall sentiment?
So I'll put it like this, Varun. I think historically, all of us now, if you have to think back, right, a lot of our memories with respect to our homes, our grandfather's house, everywhere, we remember the home well. We remember everything in the house pretty well. It's just that furniture buying has always, as I grew up also, furniture buying in the house has been a joint decision. Everybody used to be involved in what is required in the house. The way I think the business has changed over the years is, I think, as we were chatting earlier also, I think as we grew up, we've had that neighborhood carpenter, or let's say mostly the carpenter. I don't even remember going to a shop as I grew up to buy furniture. Neighborhood friendly carpenter who used to come and give a particular design for your home. What's changed in the last few years, if you ask me, is when people who are coming to, let's say, metros, right? There are modern aspirants, people who have worked. There's a particular kind of TG out there who've traveled the world, who have access to content, right? Who otherwise are just traveling and get to know what more they want. They aspire for something more, right? They want more trends. They want more comfort. They want more variety. So over the years, what's happened is people were looking for options online. Somewhere around this juncture is where PepperFry was also born about 10 years back. Right. I think the thought was, how do we provide more options to people, more variety, more trends, all of that. So in general, for a value-seeking consumer, where do you provide that value was the birth. I think so. The furniture as a category has seen a great migration over the last few years, where people shifted their buying from, let's say, a carpenter to a lot of retail shops to big box retail and also online. Right. I think that's been the journey. So everyone has gone through the shift. Today, I would say that the furniture market is massive, right? I think as a category, it's a massive category. I think not to put a figure out there, by going a lot of estimates, all the players, if you take the top 5 players in the market put together also, we wouldn't have yet scratched the surface, right? I mean, it's that large a surface, right? Because fundamentally, there is a way in which people have been shopping. So I think what people are trying to provide is more excitement to a category which was traditionally not so exciting, right?
Yeah. You mentioned one piece which I think is an interesting aspect, right? Especially furniture, something which people like to kind of touch and kind of feel. I want to see how it actually looks because it's going to be in their homes, in their offices. And while PepperFry started off as an online D2C marketplace, there's this move that has happened towards omni-channel, where obviously there are offline stores, but still there's a strong online presence. What have you seen from a consumer standpoint? This is what people prefer to kind of look at. I'm fine to just buy this online. Now, I don't have to go to a store. But what have you kind of resoundingly seen that people really do want to go to a store for X and Y? So how has that balance kind of come in? What does the consumer want to do online and what do they prefer to do at a store?
So I'll just try to handle this in parts, right? So when you talk about online, okay, so I think why do people come online and what are their barriers to buying online? If you largely look at these, right? Couple of things when we look across categories, right? Across, it's not just about furniture. People come online, one, because they think they get more value online. In general, better deals, offers, great pricing, all of that in categories, across categories, which tends to continue for even furniture furnishings, right? The second thing is the options. You walk into a store, you will get to see, let's say, maximum 4, 10 sofa pieces, and you'll have to decide between those, right? Or decide to walk across 40 shops till you find the one which you love, right? Online furniture shopping did is one location, one destination where you could find all of us. Thirdly, what PepperFry is also it's a marketplace, right? We are not selling our brands alone. We have a plethora of options. So it's technically like walking to, 60,000 shops, right? It's just going to a lot of shops to find the option that you like at your fingertip. And the other side of it, right, which is what were the barriers to people buying online? I think if we wanted India to shop online, because we started fundamentally as a online marketplace. So when we wanted India to shop online, we had to understand what were their barriers also. While these are the triggers, if I put it like that, right? Couple of the barriers that people had was people generally worried if you are ordering a non-standardized product, like you're ordering a mobile phone online, you know the specs before, you know exactly what you're buying into, right? In online, the problem was people were not sure what they ordered or what they saw on the mobile is what they would get, right? Their largest worry while shopping online was this, if I say one of the largest worries. So one thing we had to tackle was tell them, our communication over the years for this category has been hence telling them what you see is what you get, right? That's something we assure as a brand. Our experience over the years is telling you this, right? Which is one of the largest worries they used to have as a category, right? The second thing is, I'll just try to partially now shift to the second question about studio that you're also trying to say, which will also address both together. The other thing is also that beyond the cities where e-commerce penetration was high, people had already started doing a lot of this shopping online for them. It was just a migration after moving from standardized products to non-standardized products, and hence furniture fitted well into their comfort story where they didn't want to travel to 40 shops. I order online along with my partner and together it gets delivered, right? Now, but when we are talking about reaching out to the 500 plus cities in India or beyond, let's say the metros, people still believe to, like you said earlier, touch on wood or knock on wood, right? And figure out how good they're like. I went shopping multiple times before I have purchased from shops. I don't know what I understand when I knock on wood, but I just feel good. So
that's actually true. We've all knocked on wood so many times. I don't think any of us really know what that means. It's just that we've all picked up. I think you've seen, and maybe our parents doing it. We just continued the process of just knocking as we've gone along.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was just having this chat with somebody. I said, what do you like? How do you realize when you knock on wood this is right? I mean, nobody has an idea. People are you just feel good about it. So what we figured is Indians need to feel good about this, right? And hence, a couple of years back, we took the decision that we are now beyond online marketplace. The omni-channel as an opportunity is massive, and that's what Indians want, right? They also in these cities want the comfort of having seen what they're buying into. Or the other thing is, if you look at our classical target group, right? I would say a lot of them seek validation. I mean, one is the decision of buying. Second is other than shopping online, because I do really not know what is trending or what furniture color goes with the lighting in my room, right? Or if the size of the room is so much, what should be the ideal size of the furniture? People do not know this, and hence a guided purchase decision, right, is something that they also look for, which is something else that the offline retail provided, right? You go to a store and you say, my room is so much, they could. So that's when we took the journey towards omnichannel and opened up actually studios across. So there are two things. One is, like I said, people can touch and feel what they're buying into. But the larger part, I believe, which I think all of these people knows, I don't know decor myself. So if I was doing furniture for my home, I always wished I would take the support of somebody who knows the field and explains it to me. And that's what the studios does. So today we would reach 100 to 150 studios across, So that's a lot of places we are getting. Our ambition is to reach out to as many Indians through both these models put together. And the classical difference that our studios provide as against any other physical store, which is the other part which I wanted to bring in, is that our studios offer 60,000 furniture pieces, right? And what I'm trying to say is, you walk into any other store, you see the 10 pieces, which I started off earlier with.
Yeah.
Whereas in our studio, while we have displayed some, the majority of the sale actually happens on the assisted selling, which happens on a computer. Because now that they've seen this is a furniture motif, we show them what is the fabric, for example. After that, we say, this fabric, why don't you try in this design, right? And that's how the sale happens.
Yeah. And I think that's an interesting blend of digital to physical, right? Because at minute, and I think that's the most interesting aspect about bringing digital into a physical store, is that you're suddenly saying, I'm not giving you just the 10 options you see, which is what, and I agree with you. I have in the past walked from store to store, everything. Okay, I like one thing here, I like one more thing there, and it's this long process of things. But are you seeing that the in-store experience then evolves to saying, okay, we're going to help you across every aspect of you planning, putting it together, and then you almost become a core part of the life cycle for anyone doing their home now, but also then over time adding more to it and going ahead?
Yeah, what I also say, right, I think going to what you say is right. And what I also say is that is the comfort that we bring in, is, let's say somebody has shopped with us sitting in Kollam in Kerala, right? And he has gone to a store there and purchased, right? He or she. And now let's say they migrate from there to, let's say, Bangalore, right? And the comfort that we provide, you move to Bangalore or you move up north Delhi, right? You can go to the same PepperFry studio, right? You know that the store that you went to in Kollam, I can go to the same store in Delhi and purchase this product, which is a comfort which did not exist in the past in this category, at least, right? As in, most of the large retail players don't go beyond 23 cities, for example, right? 23, 24, 25. So how do people get that comfort of a known brand, which I've seen in offline? I'm talking only offline here. Give me access in multiple other cities. So that's another comfort also we bring in as a brand.
You mentioned the word migration a few times, and while I rarely do this, I'm intrigued by a term you used in a recent interview where you said what you're seeing is the reverse of reverse migration. So if I didn't ask what that meant and why you see this happening, I would just be missing the opportunity to add another term to the listeners' vocabulary. So what is reverse of reverse migration?
So I'll put it like this. A lot of our early business, I'm saying early business, came because people were moving from their hometowns to where they were working, right? And when they came to new cities, it was the easiest because you did not know the locality. Like, let me take the example which I took earlier. You moved from Kollam or Nagpur to Bombay and you do not know your locality, and hence you do not have a carpenter that you knew that you could call. These are the people who shopped with us first, right? Because this is the easiest access they had. The second thing that happened with the pandemic being around is that a lot of these people now went back, right? Because they could work from home. And hence, I would say that's what the reverse migration was all about. Because in the last couple of years, people went all back to their homes. Now when they again went back to their home, again, there was another thing which worked for us is that people had to work from home. They needed work from home furniture, for example, right? So there's this entire wave that we saw and we are still seeing for that matter, where the entire, let's say, work tables, right, or chairs, etc., are picking up because people just wanted to get them to be more comfortable if you're sitting at home and working. What's happening as we speak is a lot of India is opening up or has already opened up, right? And hence a lot of these people who have moved from the 1 BHK, 2 BHK, 600, 800 square feet homes of, let's say, Bombay and gone back to their, with respect to Bombay, I would say palatial homes back in their villages.
Anywhere else is palatial, I agree.
So now having lived there with that comfort, and they're coming back to their business towns, let me call it, or where they work, right? Now, what is happening, the entire reverse of reverse migration I was tracking is these people are now coming back, and they are not coming back with the same mentality they first came to that town with. Now they have figured they could have a great lifestyle along with comfort and everything at their home, and they don't need to compromise on their lifestyle as they did first. Okay. And which is why we believe that now the reverse of reverse migration, which I was referring to, is all these people coming back. It's not similar. Their mentality, their place of being is not the same as they were before. And it is not just got to do with this. It's also got to do with how all of us individuals have changed over the pandemic, right? I mean, we all take a little bit more care of ourselves and I think the people around today, right? All that put together, I believe people will now invest a lot more in the space they are in, a lot more on comfort. Because earlier, let's say we were saying there were sofas at home which were more great looking, but when people had to sit on it for 25 days, they figured I need comfort, right? So I think all of that is playing in now. So the entire trend which is going to change, I believe, is people now coming back from a 2,000 or a 4,000 square feet home to an 800 square feet home. Will try to figure what are the comforts I can bring in. How do I make the space a little bit more mine, right? So that's what I was referring to. Yeah.
I also think what's interesting about this is the fact that suddenly with all of us having Zoom backgrounds to deal with, the people start also look at I think the amount of people I have seen research aesthetics, even at a basic level for home. Comfort, what you mentioned is I think so important, right? We've all been sitting I've literally where I'm sitting and we doing this recording now, this table, this chair did not exist in this house till midway through the pandemic, where I said, I'm not working on the dining table anymore, right? So I totally, I relate with that so many levels. But what I've also seen is people are trying to figure out, okay, what can I kind of do? And it's also, I feel the beauty of the online space is that once you start discovering one or two things, it becomes that the tendency to add to cart, if not actually hit buy, is very high. Like you're going to keep those things around to think, I might want to buy these, might want to add these in there. So comfort, aesthetics, do you see any other aspects really kind of changing, especially as we go ahead, as this now we're kind of coming back to whatever, I hate to use the word new normal, so I will not use that term. I'll say that whatever state we seem to find ourselves in right now. Are you seeing more trends in terms of what people are gravitating towards within this category that are going to see a lot more growth?
So I'll put it like this, right? I mean, without getting into specifics, I would say overall specialized needs will continue to evolve and emerge. And when I say specialized, earlier you needed a sofa. Okay, I'll put it like that. Today, when people in Bombay are looking for a coffee table, okay, they really get a kick when a greatly designed coffee table has the entire seating go into it, right? Because it's compact, right? So while compact has always been a need and ask, I think today's point is compact furniture sometimes never looked, if I might use the word, never looked sexy. Right. So if you want to get great looking compact furniture, that's something people really. So in fact, we find people buying furniture while they're compact, not because they're compact, because they're great looking addition to their decor. Right. Yeah. So I think the journey would be, in general, I think specialized needs will keep evolving. And there are many. So without getting into it, I mean, today we have multiple of those which are very specialized categories within the category. So I think that's a trend that will continue. It's just like I said, while work from home was one of the specialized categories, we see a lot more trends that will emerge. But yes, that's one thing I think that will continue. The second thing is, I think Indians today, I would say that generally when we travel, we have a habit of picking a lot of things on the way, right? Let's say I go to Ooty, I go to London. I don't know. You travel, you pick up things memorably to come back and put on your shelf. Okay. I think in general, what will also happen now with people having spent a lot more time is their spend on decor in general at homes are going to increase. It's not just while you earlier picked up when you traveled, I think today people invest a lot more sitting at home, right? Yeah. It is not just a collection of memories. It's a collection of how you want your space to speak for yourself. And I was like having the Zoom chat with one of my friends, and he's a great fan of Rafael Nadal, right? So, and he had a poster put up behind because in his Zoom video, he has that behind him, right? Because he needs it. So I just see that people in general are investing a lot towards this.
Again, if anybody's watching this video on YouTube and stuff, doing a podcast, literally behind me, you will see that there was a lot of stuff that was collected over the pandemic to go into at least this part of where I sit. Now, as this thing has kind of evolved, how has the way you market to this consumer changed? Have you seen the way you approach the marketing focus? Has that changed?
So I put it like this. the consumers, right, whom we were trying to reach out to, because it's a vast universe, okay, and we are trying to reach out to some specific set within that. The consumers that we are trying to reach out to, the journey they have undergone, right, over the, I would say over the last 10 years, but also over the specifically last 2 years, etc. We try to, one, be in sync with that. Okay. And what I'm saying is, one is emotionally, but secondly is also what are their needs in general with respect to time, right? So I'll take this in 3 parts, if I may, right? So one, I think that it's very relevant that you speak the mindset or the mental mood they are in. So our communication in general, we try to sync with that, because there was a time, I would put it like this, we run a campaign called Furniture Mania, which is a time when a lot of furniture gets sold, right? And we were running that, and suddenly I think the second wave hit. And we figured that's not the time we continue this, right? So we took it off and we tried to connect with them on what they are otherwise needing, right? And that's the time when we actually worked with our sellers, everyone in general, to ensure they are on track to what they're doing as a business. The second part is, I was also thinking about keeping this aside, in general, the channels through which we reached out to them. So while we as a brand have been traditionally operating on all channels, okay, I would say TV, outdoor, digital, all of them. Over the last 1.5 years, we've taken a call to move out of all of this and reach out to consumers through digital as a medium. Because one, people were indoor, so it didn't make sense in doing a lot of outdoor. Secondly, we found that a lot of digital consumption was happening, which was being the trend. I myself have seen a lot of sitcoms and series I otherwise wouldn't have. So I think we reached out to people digitally. Now that things are opening up, okay, I think we have reached to a point where we are now slowly going back to a mix of modes of channels. So our campaign, which happened, the 10th anniversary campaign for PepperFry, which happened in Jan, our campaign then was a mix of all of this, like we traditionally used to do. Of course, the percentages did get impacted by how we communicated. And thirdly is what I talked about, the sentiments of their purchase buying behavior, right? So their needs, like for example, the entire work from home as a category, which I was talking about earlier. So a massive rise while Diwali was ongoing, there was a massive rise before and after that on that category as well. So we knew if that's what people wanted to buy, there's no point now you talking to them about this great lounger you should buy, right? So we tried to figure out what is their needs and try to sell. A lot of sale has happened also because of related categories of purchase, like you buy something and we talked about often bought with, right? Why don't you try this if you're buying this, etc. So it's a mix of all of this. I would say it's while there is, how do I say, a million data points at work at the back end, right? The output of that is largely understanding what does the consumer want and what does each individual consumer want differently, and not saying one language to all. And which is our largest strategy, if you ask me, as a marketing going ahead also for this year and ahead, which is if you really need to talk to the consumer beyond the metros, right, and reach out to, let's say, the top 80 cities, etc., it's very critical that you connect with each of them differently, right? And that's our larger approach that's going to be, because we will want to talk to the person sitting in Tirunelveli in a language or modality or a decor that he appreciates and understands. So that's the journey that we want to make going ahead in our, the next few years.
Now, I have a bunch more questions to ask you, but I know we need to go in for a break. So I'm going to quickly do that and we'll be right back with advertising instead.
Ladies, I'm sure you will relate to it if I say that we are constantly busy with work, studies, cooking, and what not. And amidst all of this, we often forget an important element that needs our desperate attention: finance. So here we are, bringing to you SBI Life Presents A Sip of Finance, a women-exclusive podcast where we will teach you how to manage personal finances in a simple and straightforward way with your host, Priyanka Acharya, a finance expert who's been in the industry for 14 plus years. And not just in English, but in 7 more languages. So tune in every Tuesday for fresh episodes on the IBM Podcast Network and all major podcast streaming platforms.
Super. I'll jump right back in. Welcome back to Advertising is Dead. We're still talking to Naveen. I want to take a step away from what we've been talking so far and actually talk about your journey as well. Right? I mean, prior to joining PepperFry, you spent a large part of your career working at Asian Paints. And which is why when you're talking about the in-store experience, I was also thinking about the fact that there obviously be learnings from your Asian Paints time. But as you moved from Asian Paints to PepperFry, what have you had to almost relearn and what have you had to unlearn, if I have to put it that way, just in terms of not just how the companies work differently, but I feel more in terms of just because the sector shift of sorts within the industry. What have you had to evolve? What have you learned?
So I'll put it like this. I think over the I think I've spent about 10 years with Asian Paints, and now coming here, the journey has been like this. I think the consumers are fundamentally, I wouldn't say similar. I think the person you sell a chocolate to, okay, or the home you sell the chocolate to and the home you sell the furniture to is the same. It doesn't change too much, right? So hence the emotions of the consumer are very similar. I think what has changed is how do they relate to the category differently, because those are a lot of learnings differently, right? How does the same consumer relate to this category, which is a different story altogether? Yes, I think like you said, Asian Paints has been a company which operates largely across, I mean, they're a large player across markets, right? And there are great learnings in marketing that have come from there. I think the fundamental ABCs of sales or marketing that I've learned, I've picked it from there, right? That's it. What is the learning that carries forward, and what is that I had to unlearn or relearn? I'll put it like this. Which is, I think, the fundamental operations. How do you reach out to a consumer? How do you empathize with the consumer to give more? Right. I think that's what is important, because it's not about trying to figure out how do you catch the consumer or what do you get. I think the empathy is the core of marketing for me, and that's something that we would have picked from there. What they have to unlearn is, I would say that here, PepperFry operates direct to consumer. Right. In Asian Paints, while we communicate to the consumer, the paint technically gets sold to a retailer who then sells it to a consumer, right? And hence, a lot of the work and effort happens in also training all these channels to get that delivered. Whereas here, the idea is, I think on a day-to-day basis, we directly talk to the consumer, and a sale that I do today has an impact today, right? And a decision taken today has an impact in 1 hour. So I think the game that I had to unlearn and relearn is how do we really excite the consumer on a daily basis and keep changing, right? And keep changing this category. So if you go to a regular consumer house, okay, the approximation says that they buy about 3 to 4 consumer pieces a year, right? And they have roughly about 81 pieces of furniture to furnishing in a house. That's a tentative random math by some reports. Now the idea is the idea is how do we really ensure 2 things? One is the consumer really finds us relevant to make that first purchase, and how do we really make that 81 purchases ours, or if not, a large part of that come to us, which is a repeat purchase happening again and again. So I think the journey has been that, because here there's a lot of unlearning, relearning to understand the consumer needs to be communicated very differently. The fundamental legs and levers of marketing that you employ and put more efficiency and energies on are different. So those have been, I think, the larger game changes.
Early on, you'd spoken about, if a person moves from city to city, the experience kind of stays the same. They can pick up where they left off as one way to kind of continue having a long-term relationship with the brand. What else have you seen are the needs for today for a consumer to say, especially in this category, to say that, okay, this is a brand I'm sticking to, this is a company I'm sticking to kind of, it's not just one purchase, it's like post-purchase, it's about future purchases. How do you kind of keep that consistent, just in terms of for someone to keep coming back and to, because there is a large amount of trust that comes with it, but also a large amount of community building that comes with it as well. So how do you approach that aspect?
So let me put it like this. I think overall, when you look at furniture as a category, okay, and when we look at the market on, let's say, top of mind recall and all the other regular parameters on Spont, etc. I think within the category with respect to furniture being a specialist, I think PepperFry still, is up there, right? Up top of the ranks. So that people, when they think furniture as a category and players, if they have to relate, that's up there. Now, our job largely has been, hence, while you have consumers coming on boarded, because I said they have the triggers and barriers which we try to tackle. Why do they come back? Okay, and I think that's the larger part where we now work with, because we almost operate with about 50% of repeat purchases with us, right? Consumers come back, people who have bought with us come back and buy. And this happens for 2 reasons. One is, let's say somebody has bought something very specific, and like I did not delve into too much, but the idea is there's, let's say, millions of data points at backend, right? Using which, if you could tell that consumer, now that you've purchased this, why don't you also buy something else which is very specifically linked to other 50 people who bought that, for example. So one is tailoring the communication or tailoring the purchase options for the consumer. And the second thing that we, I think, do a lot is tailoring the communication for these consumers. which is we've seen that if you really want to work on repeat, one is they really love the brand and they found what they want when they came the first time. Second thing is also we knock at their doors often to tell them that, while you've bought this, why don't you try this something out? There's something new here, right? And when I talk about those 80 pieces of furniture and furnishings in home, while, like you said earlier, while they're purchasing or not, there's definitely an add to cart happening, right?
100%, yeah.
So our the large part of the work we do is how do we get people to get into their add to cart, right? So we keep showing them more options. People today are also influenced by a lot of people around. So a lot of work that we do is regarding that also, because we work with a lot of architects, interior designer community on the ground, through who also, are, how do I say, influence the consumer decision. The idea is also how do you be relevant to them so that they influence to consumers. So that's one part we do.
Yeah.
The other part of influencers are also, I would say today, a lot of people on social media in general also create a lot of brand love, if I might call it, right? So that's another community that we work with. I think there are a lot of people today we see who post about great decor pieces. I think a lot of my friends themselves over the lockdown, because they are at home, have all become decor influencers online, right? Just because I love clicking photos of great pieces of stuff at home. So we are also, I think there's a lot of work we do with them, because if people, we provide visibility to them on what is coming new, right? And secondly, we actively work with what is that they are really kicked about. So that's one set of influencers. And of course, I think the third part is we have had the brand ambassadors, Saif and Karina, join with us somewhere around the mid of last year. And that is also another, how do I say, a wider reach that they provide. A lot more people they are able to reach out to through their communications that we have done with them. So I think it's a mix of all of this that we get the first time visits and also the repeats.
Yeah. I think the influencer part is interesting, right? Because what you said is you almost categorize them as, okay, there are experts in the area who have influence, because people look at them saying, oh, these guys obviously know what they're doing. But also on the other end, you're showing consumers who are figuring ways to kind of, so there's a relatability from a consumer standpoint. I think that breakup is a very interesting way to break up how influencer strategy should be looked at, I think across categories, because oftentimes everyone focuses on the second, right? Okay, this person has reach, let's use them for this. But area expertise, I feel, gives a lot more credibility when you when that person kind of puts something out there. So I think that's an interesting takeaway for anyone to pick up from. So is that influencer part, do you see that growing in terms of your marketing mix as it scales up?
Yeah, so I think one area that we are, how do I put it, pressing the pedal on, as in where we are really accelerating on, is this entire influencer piece. And while I put it together, right, I think there is a lot of internal segmentation that we have done. And when I largely say that architects and interior designers are one large set of experts, like you talked about, that we put a lot of energy on separately. And in fact, within the tier also, we look at them at a segmented level differently, right? And how do we reach out to them? Because a firm which is, let's say, operated for X number of years and a firm which is new, their ask, demand, aspirations to associate with a brand are very different, right? So that's how we operate very differently there. Similarly, when you talk about social media influencers, because that's a totally different piece, right? Yeah. And how that works is also, I was just yesterday also telling my wife, because I saw a movie review by a friend online, right? And I end up trusting that a lot more than the critic experts who post about that video, right? So, while it's not about experts here now, it's more about trust and believability of what they've posted. And hence, I think relatability, maybe that home looks like it could be my home, for example, if somebody posts, right? Yeah. So I think hence we're also working with a lot of, how do I say, influencers online. And when I say influencer ideas, we're talking about people who have millions of fans, right? We are talking about people who really themselves take interest in taking care of their home. They might be having 1,000 followers, they might be having 2,000, they might be having 10,000. But people who really care about those little touches they provide to their home, we would really love working with them. So that's the other part we are actively operating on. So yes, to answer your question, these levers are something we are really pushing the pedal on. And you will see us doing a lot more there. Yes.
One aspect that the audience of this podcast, I know they're always interested to know about, is that as each space develops, what kind of career opportunities are kind of opening up, which maybe weren't there a couple of years ago? And what kind of skill sets do you kind of look at when you look at the mix of your team, look at the kind of people you want to bring in? What do you look for in people you want to kind of add to your team?
So two parts. I think in general, we all talk about this internally. I think there are people that I look for or we look for in general as an organization are those that have that spunk, if I might say, right? As in that added spark to do something hatke, okay, if I put it like that. I think because it's still very easy to repeat what you're doing and optimize that, right? And keep getting great performance. What we here are looking for are folks who want to create impact, right? Number one. So any day impact over optimization, while of course optimization is something we'll continue to do, but we need folks who come with that crazy idea. They do not know it will work or fail, but they have done their research to say why it will succeed and they want to try it out. And those are folks that we invest in general, number one. Secondly, I think also given that I told about influencers, marketing, story, we're working a lot on those. I think people who have a story to tell in general, right, and want to continuously keep telling stories of people we associate with. Because, and secondly, the third part of it is, of course, relatable to the teaching, right? So all three put together.
I've had a ton of learnings through this chat, not just in the sector, but how to kind of look at some aspects of it, even for other sectors as well. But actually, the end part of every episode is actually me asking you questions which have nothing to do with anything we've spoken about so far. And the idea is for people to kind of also get to know the people I'd speak to beyond what is professional, if I have to put it that way. Beyond what you do at PepperFry, what keeps you interested? What takes up your time that you like to spend a lot of time on beyond work?
I think one thing is I spend a lot of time on, in general, fiction. And when I say fiction, it's either reading, watching, all of that. It's a mix of that. Second thing, I think I'm generally interested in music. So while I listen to as much as I can, and I attempt singing when I'm at home, so that others don't have to listen. It's only my wife who has to tolerate it. And my child, rather, that they are my patient listeners. Otherwise, with a friend of mine, I had started this thing long back where I used to play a lot of Scrabble. So that's something also I still, with my wife or when we are at home or online, I spend time on.
Have you transitioned to Wordle now, like everybody else seems to have?
Yeah, exactly. That's the current craze. So yes. So that's a couple of things. And I also enjoy photography if I could get time, but of late, extremely less on that. Yeah.
If you didn't do what you were doing, what was was there ever another career which you thought you might want to do, or was this always one of the core ones there? What else would you have been if you weren't this?
So when I was in 9th standard, I thought I'll become an aeronautical engineer. So rockets and spaceships, maybe, that's where long back I had. But then I think over my career, I did a couple of internships in that space, etc., and somehow I ended up in marketing.
I think at some point in time, all of us wanted to do something that is either in the air or in space. And weirdly enough, I don't know if you ever got this advice. Someone told me you have glasses, so you can't do anything in this space. Was weirdly, I've had at least 4 people tell me that when I was a kid. In hindsight, made no sense because it's not, I don't think you only can't be a pilot if you have glasses. But yes, I don't know if you ever got that piece of advice from anyone.
Not yet, but that's an interesting piece of advice.
What can you put together in an instant?
What can I put together in an instant? I can pick up random songs and put random lyrics to it and sing, because as music and lyrics person, I'm more of a music person than lyrics. So my wife says, where did this lyric come from?
In all these episodes we've done on this show, this has been an answer I've never gotten. Right? It's one of those so I always try to pick which are the unique ones which have never been brought up. This would have to be the first. You also mentioned that you consume a lot of fiction, right? Anything that that you've read, watched, or listened to recently that you recommend?
Anything that I've watched recently? So this is an old movie. I just ended up watching it again. So hence I would just recommend that. It's Moneyball. So I just ended up watching it again recently. And I think for some reason keep staying. It's interesting fiction, reality, mix of all put together, right? So I think that's something I would recommend right now.
Thank you so much, Naveen. Thanks for coming on the show. It's an exciting sector, and I'm happy it's finally a sector that's exciting for everyone. And more than anything else, I think that there's a ton of insights that everyone kind of take from this and kind of build into their thought process as professionals, as marketers, etc. So thanks for coming on Advertising is Dead and sharing all of this with us.
I had a great time too, Varun. I think it's been a while, but it was a great interaction.
If you like this podcast and you want to listen to more podcasts like this, head over to the IVM Podcast website or app or wherever you get your podcast from and look at all the podcasts that IVM makes. There's some really fun stuff there.
Hey, Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Advertising is Dead, Varun speaks with Shashank Mehta, founder and CEO of The Whole Truth Foods. He shares his own journey of moving from eating mostly junk food to starting an enterprise that produces health foods with clean ingredients. These simplified hosts explore the fascinating topic of mimetic theory and entrepreneur Peter Thiel's interpretations of how anthropologist Renee Girard speaks about it. On Pulyabazi, Pranay and Saurabh analyze how organic farming has affected Sri Lanka. Marathi Kirgithan has a fascinating episode where the Deshmukhs decode one of India's most celebrated poems. And on Say No to Drama, Chetna unfolds some truths about getting a promotion and the drama around it. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Also, don't forget to rate us on any of the platforms you might be listening to us on. And do check us out on YouTube. We're building a whole bunch of different channels. You can find them on ivmpodcast.com/YouTube. And we're also doing a small listener survey, which we would really appreciate your help with. It helps us kind of talk to advertisers. So you could go to ivmpodcast.com/survey. It'll just take a couple of minutes and it would be really helpful to us. We do appreciate this. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, SBI Life Insurance and the India Water Portal. Thank you so much for making this possible.
If you're a cricket fan, check out Edges and Sledges, India's favorite cricket podcast.
The podcast focuses on Indian cricket, the IPL, and has a ton of banter both on and off the field.
We talk about the week's biggest cricket stories with current and ex-international cricketers, coaches, or sometimes just between us.
And it's hosted by me, DJ.
Me, Varun.
And me, Ashwin.
New episodes release every week.
You can catch us on the IVM Podcast's website, app,
or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Check out the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast.